Hello, everyone. I usually try to record these videos at the beginning of each module, but I missed the first two modules, obviously, because I've been taking a lot of sick leave. So this is module 3, and I'll just be going over what's in the module. These module videos are pretty important because it does allow me to give you more information about the assignments and to explain them a little bit further, sometimes explaining why we're doing them, or give you some tips for how to complete them a little bit better. And so giving you a little bit of the justification behind them, maybe giving you some ideas for how to complete them. So I encourage you to watch the videos and encourage you to watch them before you send me an email, because often I will answer student questions in the video before they even have to email me. So this module, so module 3, the first two modules, introduction, and then we looked at creative nonfiction. Now we're getting into short stories, which for most students is kind of with the type of writing that they're familiar with, which is why I usually start there, even though our book starts with poetry. Most students have more experience doing short stories. Often students have written stories either on their own, or they've done classes where they've written stories. They may have started their own novel. And so this just gives them a chance to explore some of those basic creative writing techniques that most people are familiar with, at least have heard of, but gives you a chance to explore them and apply them to stories that are for this class. So as you can see, there's a lot of stuff in this module, but you're actually not doing a lot of things that are beyond what we've been doing in the other modules. So the first thing I want you to do is to read the chapter on the short story, this gives you kind of an overview of the different elements of writing a story, a lot of terminology that we can apply and that we will be using. I also have a PowerPoint in here that's just kind of a really generic how to write short stories. So if you are kind of lost or haven't written a story before and just kind of want some place to start, you've got the assignment, what do I do with it? That means that you really need a place to go to see that step-by-step process. Then this PowerPoint will be good for you. So we've got that chapter reading, and then you're going to take the chapter quiz. So again, we've got a quiz. Now, I haven't had a chance to, I know that there's a video already in Module 1 that kind of goes over what the ungraded part of the class is. So this is a graded assignment, and so all of the graded assignments in this class are ones that are self-graded, essentially. So you have control over the points that you get. So if you just take this quiz once and you get 7 points, and that's a good enough grade for you, then you can leave it that way. If not, then you can just keep taking the quiz until you get the number of points that you want. And so that's how all the quizzes are set up, and then essentially the class is based on your participation. So getting all the check marks, which I've been going in and doing. If you complete something, you'll get the green check mark in the grade book, or you'll get a number in the grade book as a number point value. And so those point values are what adds up in Canvas as your grade, but those green check marks are also important, because if you don't have them and you've got too many points, then at the end of the semester, I dock your letter grade based on what your actual participation in the class is. So the other thing that is in this module is more information on short stories. So once you've read about short stories and writing fiction, then we get into the collection that you'll be writing. So basically the collection is, we have 4 stories that you're going to write, and they're going to each be due in a module from this point forward. And the due date is just to get them submitted. You actually can work on them in any order, and I typically will open up like the rest of the short story modules. I kind of open them up and so at the same time, so that you have time to just go in and submit them if you want. If you feel more inspired by one story assignment or another, then that's fine. You can start with something different. But typically we start with point of view. There's kind of a reason why I put them in this order, and that is the energy story is the hardest, point of view story is typically the easiest. Character story gives you some skills to build the energy story. So that's kind of the reason I put them in that order. So the point of view story is looking at a well-known story from the bad guy perspective. So if you you could do a fairy tale. That's a lot of students choose fairy tales just because they're simplistic stories, but everybody is familiar with them. It doesn't really matter the version of the story that you use. It's just identifying the good character versus the bad character. And the main thing that you're trying to do is justify the bad guy's perspective or the bad guy's actions. The motives or motivation, right? And so we've actually had some pretty good movies come out recently that have tried to do this. Maleficent for being one example. So what is the perspective of the bad guy? Why did he or she do this to the good guy? That kind of thing. And so you have to have a beginning, middle, and end. The only issue that students sometimes have is if you have a character who dies at the end, then sometimes it's kind of hard to write that ending. So sometimes they'll cut it off right before the dramatic death scene. So just kind of keep that in mind. Then we have the character story, which is an exploration of different types of characters. So you have to have different types of characters in your story, at least one rounded character, one flat character, and then a clear antagonist. The other details are up to you. And the point of view is up to you, but this is a focus on making sure that you have enough details for your characters, that you have different types of characters, that kind of thing. So we're practicing character technique. Energy story is probably the hardest one, and that is just because you're trying to create an energetic structure by adding an unexpected twist. So we want the ending to have a twist to it that we did not expect. And so that's sometimes a little bit harder to write. So we want a believable plot line. We're doing a lot more showing than telling. And so there will be some information in that module about showing versus telling, which is another really important technique, a fiction technique that we need. And then you can use, but for this one, you can use any kind of characters, any kind of point of view, but that plot line is what we're really interested in, is how can you create that dramatic tension and then an unexpected twist, something that happens at the end that, oh my gosh, we're not expecting that. And then the last story that you'll write is your choice. So you can either do another version of one of the three that we just looked at, or you can do something completely different. And this just allows you to have as many characters as you want, the setting that you want, the point of view that you want, the plot line that you want, as long as you have a clear plot line, beginning, middle, end, clear climactic moment with usually revolving around a single conflict with an antagonist and a protagonist. You have to have at least one character, but the rest of the story is up to you. And so it's got the basics of a short story, but this allows you to explore any kind of story. And there are Kickstarters in your textbook if you're having trouble coming up with something. So those are the four short stories that you'll be working on. This module, though, so they're assigned, but you don't have to. You're not turning any one of the four in. Instead, you are practicing some short story elements, and this is the short story element assignment, where you will pick 3 prompts and write out a response to them. It's not a full story. We're just practicing the specific prompt. So, for example, sensory detail, describing your favorite food or dish using as much sensory description as possible. That's going to be a good sized paragraph, but we're including a lot of the senses and just like excessive detail about your favorite food. So that kind of thing would be something that you could do. So it's up to you. You pick 3 of the 6 and then write out your ideas, and that's the submission that you turn in for this one. So this is not a specific story, and it's not necessarily related to the story assignments, but it is to just get you practicing those elements. And so this is a good place where, as long as you've got the element done, then you may have just one paragraph, you may have a whole page. It really depends on how much content you want to put into it. Then, of course, make sure that you're taking the self-assessment quiz. Make sure you take these at each module. That is how you get your grade for the class. If you don't take the self-assessment quizzes, then you won't have a grade at the end. So make sure you do that. I also have the journal linked in here. I've had a few questions about the journal. This is solely for your own use. You could do any kind of creative work in here. Basically, a page equals an entry. I want you to do 8 throughout the entire semester. So you may, if you keep a planner or something every other week or so, make sure that you sit down and do a journal entry so that you're not doing them all at once at the end. But basically, this is your free space to complete any kind of creative work. The only thing I don't want is like a diary entry of your day. I went here and I did this and I did this. That's fine if it is a personal reflection of the day where you're exploring some of your feelings and actions and stuff like that. I just don't want a list of things that you did. That's not the purpose of the assignment. And you're also not going to be like copying and pasting the stories that you write for the assignments in here. This is your space to explore an assignment prompt. Sure, you may have like character outlines or something like that, but it is not a space for you to just copy and paste work that you've already done. So that's the purpose of the writing journal. This is kind of a long video. Most of them will be a little bit shorter, but that is our module 3, starting short stories. Hopefully you're doing okay. If you have any questions at all, make sure that you send me an email. You can send me a text message. You can call me on my office phone. Absolutely. I am more than happy to help you out. And I hope you are having a great week.